What if the team member you've quietly given up on is the one your plant needs the most? Happens every day. A supervisor decide a certain person who they were 18 months ago, and they walk by them and they don't see them as a different person who they might be today. That team member feels it. He stops trying, production suffers, and nobody's talking about it. My guest today, Nir Eyal, author of three bestsellers, including the New York Times bestseller, Beyond Belief. He spent the last decade studying how the beliefs we hold about other people quietly shape what we see, what we expect, and what we actually try to do. And today, we're going to apply that work to where most leadership books don't go, to the shop floor. And welcome to Manufacturing Greatness, Nir.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Great to be with you.
Yeah, the whole concept of your work, it's like this guy's worked in manufacturing. Here's my whole stick is we end up talking about people in a boardroom, say it's an HR management problem, and I can hear it in the room. Well, we know this person from years ago, right? And then we're not being curious enough to go into that actual problem. And so that's how I got excited reading your book, and I read it over again, and I had an Audible and on my drives. I've given copies to my kids just because it's changing the way, and you're giving a different framework on
Mm.
how we can look at people. So that's why I was just excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it means the world to me when people gift my books to other people, especially to their children. That's no higher compliment. So thank you so much.
So have you run into this near like, you have good examples in your book and your own examples, but I sent you some information on like, what my perspectives were on your work and how I see our worlds colliding. So what was your first thoughts on like how this manufacturing world connects into your work?
Well, I think from an HR perspective, I mean, you've hit on a fundamental truth, which is we don't see people as they are. We see people as we believe them to be. And the more we project what we believe about them, the more they take that information as fact, and they will oftentimes conform to our expectations. Now, that doesn't mean we have to put up with low performers. It doesn't mean we have to accept mediocrity, but it does mean that we should be very careful of our judgments, because
Mm,
many times what we find is that even good people, right? People who want to do great work, they want to give you their all, under the wrong circumstances can become worse performers. And the question is why, right? If we think
mhm.
that if we just need to incentivize people properly, right? But particularly people in manufacturing, you're very analytical people, right? Input X and you get Y. And we think that motivation should work like that. That if I give you a certain incentive, here's your salary, here's your performance package, all the benefits, and I tell you what to do, I tell you the behavior, well, that's enough, isn't it? You and I both know that is very optimistic to think that all we have to do is just tell people what to do and why they should do it, and they'll do it. There's clearly something missing. What's missing? Why is it not that easy? Even for yourself, right? Think about for yourself. Why is it that when we live in an age of so much information abundance, we all basically know how to get in shape. We all basically know how to do a job. We basically know what to do, how to repair relationships. All the answers are out there. So it can't be that simple to just think, well, if I know what to do and why I need to do it, then I will do it. There's something missing. What's missing is belief. That motivation is not a straight line between behavior and benefit, that motivation is a triangle. That in order to sustain motivation over the long term, you need to not only know what to do, the behavior, you not only need the benefit, why I'm doing it, but most importantly, you have to have the belief in place that holds this motivation triangle together. So, for example, if you don't believe in your leader, in your manager. Okay, maybe you don't believe
Mm,
in the person you're working for. You don't believe that where they're taking the company. You don't believe
yeah.
that they have your best interest at heart. Maybe you don't think they're going to give you that promotion or that raise or whatever. You don't believe in them. We've all worked for somebody like that. What does your motivation level feel like? You're not going to work very hard, right? And
No.
and what's your suffering feel like, right? Every day becomes a chore. It becomes something you dread.
Hmm.
Conversely, even if you know exactly what to do, if you don't believe in your own ability to do that behavior, maybe you have what's called a limiting belief, where
Yeah.
you think, well, I'm not ready for this. This is too hard. It's not. What if it doesn't work out? You have these limiting beliefs. Also, what happens to your long-term motivation? You're also going to quit. Even if you know exactly what to do. How many of us know exactly what to do, right? We know how to get in
Hmm.
shape. We know how to build our business. We've read the books. We've talked to the gurus. We've listened to the podcasts and YouTube videos, and yet we don't do it.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we lack a belief. If you don't have the right beliefs installed, doesn't matter how much information you know, you will not sustain your behavior long enough to see the project succeed.
I connect to that so much because I talk about intentions versus perceptions, right? So it's kind of like reversed. I talk about how we show up impacts on how people feel. And the belief part is kind of like that other layer. And it's almost that reversal of like, are we coming at the situation with judgment or curiosity? Right. And so my anchor is curiosity, right? In
That's
fact,
so good.
we start like manufacturers, engineers, like they're curious, like how things are made and processes and how to make improvements.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, we stop doing that with humans,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, I know that person. And yeah, they probably are late because of this reason. So taking a script from your book, now I'm starting to ask leaders, give me 3 reasons on maybe the why that person is late, and it's not a negative, right? I forget how you word it, but some good reasons where it could have been a positive intention.
Yeah.
So I've
More
been
precise.
using that
So
from you.
yeah, that's fantastic. And what you're touching on is what's called the turnaround, which I have to give credit. You give credit to me, but I have to give credit to the person who originated, which is Byron Katie. She called it the work. And it's part of what's called inquiry-based stress reduction, which is this technique that we can use to ask ourselves, is there a better belief set? Right. And the idea here isn't to whitewash things. It's not to see things as better than they necessarily are. It's to see reality more clearly. It's to see reality accurately, because
Mhm.
beliefs are not facts. Okay, beliefs are not facts. A fact is an objective truth. It is something that is true, whether or not you believe in it. The world is more like a sphere than it is flat. Sorry, flat earthers, a fact's a fact. The world doesn't care what you believe. You can't change facts. Faith, by the way, that's on the other end of the spectrum. Faith is a conviction that does not require evidence. God rewards the righteous. There's no amount of evidence I can present to somebody that should change their mind on that, nor should I. It's a matter of faith. Now, the problem is that far too many of us take things that we are on faith that we think is a fact, and we don't have the intellectual humility to offer up that new evidence, to ask ourselves, wait a minute, am I believing in this based on pure faith? For example, you see a lot of bosses, a lot of leaders who, have this belief that they have ultimate blind faith in their abilities. So better. Why? Do it because I say so, right? Parents, I see this with parents all the time. Hey,
Yeah.
dad, why should I do that? Because I said so. Ugh, worst thing you could possibly tell your kid. And I hear it all the time. Because I'm your dad. Because I said so. And it's blind
Oh,
faith. That's pure blind faith. And we don't realize that not only is that not, that we're keeping that faith just without evidence, we won't even consider other points of view, which is really locking us in. That even it's not a fact, it's a belief. What is the definition of a belief? A belief is a conviction that is open to revision based on evidence. And what keeps us locked in is that too many of us don't realize that the things that we think are facts aren't facts. They're just beliefs. We have made ourselves believe something, this conviction, based on the evidence that we've collected, but we don't realize that we've collected that evidence throughout our entire lives, right? The reason you said something to your son or your daughter that your parents said to you is because that became a belief. That became this luggage that you've been carrying around with you your whole life because you didn't ask for it. You adopted it without thinking, because our beliefs come from our upbringing, from our background, from our culture, from things we've said to ourselves, from things other people have said to us. And so we become habituated to these beliefs and we think it's part of our identity. We think it's us, but it's
mhm.
not us. It's just a belief.
And I think your work is going to help manufacturing in the fact of we can change those beliefs, right?
That's
And
right.
there's techniques to do that. And one of my favorite sayings is like, is this belief serving you? You know,
Great test.
and when you ask that and you talk about that, it's kind of like, okay, so if I believe this person's lazy, if I believe that they're not good at their job, how is that helping the company? How is it even helping me in my role and my daily frustrations? How can I flip that script?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some people might hear that and say, well, does that mean I just need to like accommodate anybody's deficiencies? No. Sometimes, somebody showing you their behavior can be a good thing.
Hmm.
That's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to change facts. Facts are facts. We're trying to change our perception of suffering. So people think that employee showed up late and that's bad.
Hmm.
Is it bad? Is it a law of physics that it's bad? It's like you said, right? Judgment versus curiosity. Judgment would say good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Everything's good, bad, good, bad. We love to do that as humans, and especially as
Yeah.
manager. But that's
Often.
the source of our suffering. I can think of a lot of reasons why someone showing up late is great. One of which is, hey, they're showing us they're not a good fit. Amazing. That could be great, but I'm not suffering anymore.
Yes.
Another one could be, hey, maybe they've got a situation. I love what you said, approach things with curiosity versus judgment. That is so spot on. Another could be, let me get curious here. Maybe it's something fixable. Maybe it's something that if I took the time to sit down and be like, hey, I noticed you're late. What's in your way? Not with trying to reprimand, not trying to issue them a ticket, but with genuine curiosity. What's in your way? And sometimes those things, turns out many times it's just a little pebble in their shoe. It's something that can be figured out that we can solve for them. Sometimes it can't. Sometimes the best thing to do is to part ways. But again, either way, it shouldn't cause us suffering.
Yeah, because in manufacturing, there's a lot of turnover. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of burnout. And we're doing a study right now. I'm really concerned of like the generation Z or Z, just kind of what's their perception, what's their belief of what it's like to work in manufacturing. I think that, and this is why I'm on this whole rant of like performance improvement plans and progressive discipline. And it's kind of like, it becomes a scapegoat for the belief in people because it's easier to write somebody up for being late than it is just to sit down and say, hey man, what's going on? I know that you've been doing well and you struggled to get in here on time. What's, like you said, what's in your way? Like, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden we can learn something. And that may be because we take this ownership of like, oh, I got to get on that person and I got to put the hammer on them. And it's like, there's no hammers in manufacturing when it comes to people. It's just conversations, man. And it's like, okay, so you're late on this report. Let's figure that out. I believe you're going to get it done on time, and you're showing me something different. What is it telling me? Let's talk that through.
That's right. That curiosity. And how am I as a leader giving that person a belief that will sustain their motivation? We know that there's a recipe for burnout. Burnout, when you ask people, what kind of jobs do you think result in people having greater anxiety and depression? When I first I saw this study, and I kind of asked myself before I saw the conclusions, what kind of jobs would give people greater rates of anxiety and depression? I would think it'd be a sad job. It would be a mortician, or maybe a veterinarian who has to put puppy dogs to sleep or something, some kind of sad job. It has nothing to do with what you do and everything to do with the environment you do it in. So it turns out that the formula for burnout is two things. It's a confluence of high expectations coupled with low control. That is literally the cookbook recipe for burnout. High expectations and low control. Now, interestingly, high expectations and high control, no problem. People rise to the occasion. That's the kind of stuff that builds memories, that builds confidence, that builds evidence of self-efficacy. So what turns out to be the formula is to increase control. That's the problem. It's increasing control. It's trying to figure out, hey, where do we have more agency, as opposed to, I'm going to tell you what to do, that you're going to do things exactly the way I say them. Rather, coming at it with curiosity and solving the problem together. How can I give you more agency to solve the problem? How can we work together here? Let's find a way to make this happen. Let's turn the tables. One of the best tools you can do as a manager is to literally ask the person, as opposed to, here are the rules, here's the curfew, you have to be home, blah, blah, blah. Rather, hey, here's what I'm struggling with, okay? With my daughter, for example. I worry about you when you're out late, and I want to go to sleep, but I can't go to sleep when you're out late because I'm thinking about you. I'm worried about you're being safe, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you were in my shoes. What would you do? And you know what she came up with? She said, well, you know what? If I were you, as opposed to saying I have a hard curfew, I would ask you as the father, me as the daughter. If I was the father, I would say, well, what if I text you just to let you know I'm okay on the hour? How about that? Like, I'm going to text you and if I come home, I demand that if I was a father, I would demand that you come home only with a taxi. Okay. I would like, show me the receipt that you took a taxi. I don't want your friends driving you home. Right. So like she came up with all these rules because I gave her the ability to have control over the situation. I wouldn't be surprised. I know for a fact, actually, with people I've worked with, when they're given the opportunity to solve the problem, and it's not just do this or else, but hey, let me give you the keys to the kingdom. You tell me what you would ask of a person like you to fix a situation for me. Switching those tables, you'd be amazed what people can come up with.
for the listeners that are driving into a manufacturing plant right now, and I can see the wheels turning because, whether you're a plant manager or your frontline leadership, it is about like, how do we balance that? And when we have tension, we're creative. When we're stressed out, we're not. And I think in that whole control and expectation, I just felt that, right? Like, you got to hit this number and the robots keep faulting,
Mm.
right? So it's kind of like,
Do I have control over it?
yeah. So what level of control do I have over it? I can change
Yeah.
the tips more often. I can do a break relief. I can schedule some maintenance on the weekend. And looking at the levels in the organization of a manufacturing plant that you could look at. We talk about manufacturing talent development, right? At different levels, at different stages. But this is something that could be part of the DNA of a plant, right?
Because what we tend to do is we tend to give people individual performance assessments based on things they don't individually control.
Mm,
Whereas, even when we think of bonuses, okay, if the company does well, then you get an extra profit share or this or that or something. I don't control what happens to the company. I don't control the geoeconomic forces of, if it's going to be a good sales year or not. I'm working on the shop floor. Like, why
yeah.
should my compensation be tied to that? You're not going to change performance that way. Where you
Mhm.
can change performance is not at the individual granular level when it comes to, if you do this and that, then we're going to give you more bonus or whatnot. You can do that sometimes, you can get people to work more hours if you pay them hourly, but you're not necessarily going to get higher quality work out of them. What seems to be the right middle ground is to work on teams that get rewarded together, where
Mhm.
that team together has control over the outcome. So maybe I don't have as an individual the control, but if I help my teammates succeed, on areas that they control and we can work together to solve that common mission, that gives me a greater sense of autonomy, agency, and control that decreases my sense of burnout, because now I feel like in the context of this team, maybe I don't control what Joe controls, but I can influence Joe because Joe and I are on the same team.
Mhm.
And now I have more control. I have more agency.
And so all of a sudden, everybody gets around that. So instead of like, hey, it's going to be a struggle of a day, now all of a sudden that agency is more there, right? Okay, so we got 15 people or 10 people on this line, but you know what? We got some good belief here and we've got some control, right? We can control if we want to change those tips earlier or we want to do something different. And all of a sudden that stress starts to go down and we start to get a little bit more. That's real motivation. Suppose the leader, okay, everybody, this morning we just got to try a little harder. Everybody's
What
just
the
got to
hell does
like,
that mean?
oh, keep your eye on quality today. Like
Yeah,
I didn't.
exactly.
What are you saying?
Exactly. But I love that, when it's a communal shared goal that I actually have input to. And I found that, I don't know if you tell me what your experience has been. If the team size gets too big, I think it's around 8 to 10 is kind of the
Hmm.
max. If it gets too big, I don't have that sense of agency. I don't feel like my input matters. Now I'm being told what to do. Somebody on the team is going to be quieter than somebody else. You need that common shared goal. But when it's a small team, then I feel that every single one of us has some kind of direct input into making the product better. And then we all agree on that shared goal and we all can see opportunities for improvement. What that does is that gives us greater agency, right? So our beliefs drive what we think we can do. Our beliefs drive what we expect because I put
Hmm.
some kind of goal on the board that we've all agreed to. And most importantly, that then drives beliefs about what I am looking for. We call this the power of attention. I can literally start to see things as opposed to platitudes like, let's keep your eye on quality today. It means, hey, we've been working on ways for this specific problem. I want you to look for ways specifically around this thing because that seems to be the bottleneck. That seems to be what's slowing us down, for example. So now I'm going to look for that because I believe that we have evidence that that has been improving our numbers. So we're going to keep looking for it. It's amazing. When you believe that change is possible, you start seeing it. That if you have
Hmm.
fixed beliefs, for example, if you believe that people are greedy, that people are rude, guess what? You're going to live your entire life seeing that. You will find every instance of people being rude and you'll reinforce, people are such jerks. Whereas if you think, actually, people are great by and large, there's some bad apples, but by and large, people are very nice. They're friendly. They want to take care of their kids and improve their community. And, they're just working for a living. You start seeing that too. You start seeing kindness everywhere.
Quick break here. If this is resonating with you, what Nir and I are talking about, when you're in this judgment trap, you can go to manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe. And I'm going to give you those 10 questions that you can download that can help change with that belief, right? Keeping our curiosity. It's free, and you'll be able to keep up with other information on the new book coming out. Back to the show.
So you don't see things as they are, you see things as you believe them to be.
Mhm. You know what happens there is that I have these coaching conversations, and a leader goes up and they see people on the shop floor, and they're just talking. They're not working.
Mm,
And if you're stuck in that old belief system of that people are lazy,
mm,
you're gonna walk up and they're gonna feel it right away, right? You're gonna feel like, oh, why are you guys standing around?
yeah,
Like it's just because that's where I think the attention that you talk about, right? Like, is my attention on, oh, I wonder what they're missing. I wonder what they need.
yeah,
And then you kind of come up with those open arms instead of the finger. And it's like, I think that brings more of that anxiety to work too, right?
a
That
great point. And
stress.
back to what you said about curiosity versus judgment. Hey, curiosity, are they talking about a way to coordinate improvements to the line? Maybe. It could be that they do need more socialization time. That maybe if I really care about Joe and his family, I'm more like, if I know something about him, I'm more likely to care that he's doing well. Maybe that's a good thing, right? We need that as well. So again, judgment versus curiosity.
So even listeners, you're driving to work and you're seeing people talking, even just that little shift of, even if they were talking about hunting and fishing, you know what? My team members are getting along. There's some value to that. Okay, maybe we need to get back to the production right now, and there's another reason. But that belief just kind of goes, that attention goes so deep.
Yeah,
And
because
that,
it provides an opportunity, right? Again, the suffering element. If you say to yourself, people are so lazy, they take every opportunity to slack off and chit chat about nonsense, as opposed to, wait a minute, what's a different belief? Oh, this is an opportunity now. You know what? We probably do need an after work, drinks session or something. We probably do need to go out
Mhm,
as a team and bond, because if they're not getting it after work, they're trying to find time at work. That's
mhm,
signal. That's information. You interpreting it as bad is where the suffering happens. But if you interpret it as just data, just information, it's just signal, it can
yeah,
be very good.
interesting. I like it because I like your work, Nir, because it can apply to a manufacturing process, like what we believe. Because my whole thing is that the problem on the surface is never the real problem. There's always something.
Right.
So it's like we start with that. Okay, so that's a signal, whether someone's late, a line's down, something's bad, but then there's something beneath that. So we can apply that to the process of manufacturing. We got our curiosity. Then we can apply it to the leaders, to the teammates, anybody, right? A big part of my book is that, like, very anti-progressive discipline, because like it hides that. And if we have the right belief, we can still follow that. They're late from break again. Well,
Mm,
we know, right? So now there's a pattern. We can ask curious, like, what would it be take you to get back from break on time? How can we support you? And sometimes it's not a fit. But man, as a leader, it's not stressful, because it's like, okay, I've asked the questions, I've given this person the opportunity. It's just not a good fit for them right now. They can't get to work on time. And we've tried to support them as much as we can. And we've had those conversations. So we feel good about that. And then the third spot I see, I got a text from a family member. And my dad passed away earlier this year. My mom's in the hospital right
sorry.
now. So it's been a tough
Mm,
year.
mm,
And basically, the text was along the lines of, thanks for letting me know, sarcastically. And it was just a very negative text. And
mm.
I was like, huh. I was like, so negative thoughts are going to come. That's just, I think we all go through that. But then I thought, okay, what's my belief about this person? Obviously, it's a negative text, but what are they going through right now? What could be 3 reasons on why this person sent me this text? So I responded the day after, and it was just a gracious, basically, text of saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm struggling right now. I'm not communicating to everybody. I imagine this is hard for you too. And, I wish you the best. And because I think that person needed that. They didn't need me to come back. So I think that's why I like your work, because I can apply it in those 3 spots.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of my, I used to get annoyed by that kind of stuff a lot, right? I used to have a lot of tension over why do people talk to me that way, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what this is. And it can be very convincing, right? Like, obviously, if you're suffering, if a dad passed away, your mom's in the hospital, you deserve a certain amount of respect. But here's the thing, that is judgment. We're
Yeah.
judging things to be different.
Yes.
right? We think we need it to be different. People have to talk to me a different way so that I can be happy.
Yes.
Today, that in a way, this also was a gift, right? If nothing more, it was an opportunity to practice patience. Let's say it was just that opportunity to practice patience. So one of my liberating beliefs that I constantly repeat to myself all the time, several times a day, is we're all working with the tools we have. We're all working with the tools we have, right? If somebody comes to your house to repair your plumbing and they bring a blowtorch or a forklift, may not help, right? They don't have the right tools for the job. They're not going to be able to do the job you want them to do. It's the same thing with when it comes to this interpersonal dynamics, right? If somebody responds to you a certain way that you don't like, they're operating with the tools they have. Why would I expect them to do anything different? It's like expecting that person to respond to your text message in Latin. So
They
how
don't
could they
have one.
possibly speak that language? The
Yeah.
problem is that we expect them to respond to the way we deserve, right? And so we
Mhm.
judge their response when it's not the way we like. But the suffering isn't happening out there. It's not because of their text message. Are you saying that characters on a screen, that's what changes your mood and your physiological state, your psychological state? It's these little, bits of information on your phone, that's what did it? No,
Mhm.
it's your interpretation of that information. That's what causes our suffering. And so
Mhm.
it's here. Suffering isn't happening out here. Suffering is up here. And so, having those liberating beliefs that free us from that suffering, it's just such a better way to go through life, and this isn't anything new. This is what the Stoics told us. This is what the Buddhists have told us. This is, there's some ancient wisdom here. It's just that science is now catching up to what a lot of these ancient philosophies have known for quite some time.
Mm. Well, you package it in a different way. You in partnership with Julie Lee, your wife. I think it's just awesome that you guys have that together and all those resources you put out there. And I can tell you, the listeners, that you're for real. Like you gave me a lot of grace this morning. I had some issues with my platform. And Nir said, hey, this is an opportunity to practice patience. Maybe we can do this later. It's like, okay, this dude's real. Right. And I'd already met you before, so I wasn't
Mhm.
surprised.
Not that it doesn't cause us pain, by the way. This stuff is
Mhm.
going to cause pain. But here's the revelation. Here's the thing that will change your life. It certainly changed mine. Pain is not suffering, right? Stuff
Mhm.
happens. You can't control that. Those are facts. We can't change the facts. But our interpretation, the suffering comes from our judging those facts, right? So
Mhm.
something didn't happen the way you want it to happen. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? Like if right now you started having heart palpitations and your heart was beating very quickly and you started sweating and your muscles started getting tight and sore. If that happened right now, Trevor, we'd have to take you to the hospital. But if you had those same exact physiological symptoms, the same thing happened in the gym, well, you're getting a good workout. Congratulations. That's great.
Mhm.
Well, what changed? The same information, the same data, the same physiological conditions interpreted completely different based on your story. One is this is supposed to happen.
Mhm.
One is this is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So in a manufacturing facility, it's just your story that what happened isn't supposed to happen. That's the source of the suffering. That's the source of your bad mood. That's the source of impatience and anxiety and depression.
Someone got hurt at your plant, if you had some bad quality come out, and if you had some big downtime, I mean, how do you look at those and say, it just happened? Okay. So now I need to be curious about like what drove that to happen. Like, how do
Right.
we go a little bit deeper on that and be curious and kind of understand that? And another thing that I'm thinking about too is a manufacturing plant within the four walls. You talk about environment, right? And I talk about connecting the top to the shop and leveraging these resources we already have. So it does give a lot of insight to like we create our culture, and we know that culture is behaviors repeated over time. That becomes
Mhm.
our culture. So if we can start practicing that in your plant today, right? If you start practicing that with each other and you remind each other in this, because when we get stressed out and that line's down, we start freaking out. And we don't have to do that, right? We can just say, okay, line's down. We don't like it. It's painful, but me freaking out about it is not going to help the rest of this team. And we see that chocolate fountain just cascade through the plant, right? And if you get a upset, angry plant manager, then that's going to cascade through the plant, those beliefs, and now we have the power to switch that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm going to leave a bunch of links that you shared with me in the show notes. How do the listeners best, and I also have the link to buy your book, which I highly recommend. And how do the listeners best follow you?
Sure. Yeah. So the best place to go is my website, nirandfar.com. Nir is spelled like my first name. So that's Nir and far.com. And there's a 5-minute belief change journal there that we didn't put in the book, but it's available to you totally free. There's no obligations. So that's a great way to get started. And the book is called Beyond Belief, and it's available wherever books are sold.
Right on. Okay. And I know that we're tight on time because you got another one to go to, but I gotta have you tell the quick version of you sent your mother flowers. And it's
Oh, yeah.
one of
Yeah.
my
So
favorite
this is an
stories.
embarrassing one.
But it's embarrassing, but I think it's, for me, I really relate to it because I've done it and I think listeners need to hear it.
A few years ago, it was my mom's birthday, and I wanted to do something nice for her. So I decided to send her some flowers. The problem was that I was living in Singapore at the time, and she was in Central Florida, where I grew up. But I stayed up late at night, and I found her the best florist, the best bouquets. I had the flowers delivered, and I went to bed that night thinking she's going to call me up and tell me what a wonderful son I am. And that's not what happened. And what happened was I call her up the next day, and I say, "Hey, mom, happy birthday. Did you get the flowers?" And she says, "Yeah, I got the flowers, but just so you know, they arrived half dead. So don't order from that florist again." To which I said, "Well, that's the last time I buy you flowers," or something like that. And I'm not happy I said that, but this was before I did this research and I started implementing this in my life, so that's what came out. And my wife was sitting right next to me. We work together. She's my editor. She knows all about the research I've been doing. And she turns to me and she says, "Nir, would you like to do a turnaround on that?" To which I said, "No, I don't want to do your hocus pocus, touchy feely mumbo jumbo. I need to vent, right? That's what we're supposed to do. When someone pisses us off, we're supposed to tell them how we feel." But I knew better. I knew that the research showed that when you vent about people, you're just reinforcing your beliefs about them because we don't see
Mhm.
people as they are. We see people as we believe them to be. So I took a step back and I did this turnaround. A turnaround is a process developed by one by the name of Byron Katie. And the idea here is that we're going to ask ourselves questions that lead us to consider other possibilities. Okay. So the idea here is to take out that belief. And the belief was that my mother is too judgmental and hard to please. Okay. My mother is too judgmental and hard to please. And ask ourselves, could the opposite be true? Okay. Not that I'm trying to change my mind, but just to collect a portfolio of perspective, just to see what else might be true. So could it be true? Could the opposite be true? So my belief, my mother is too judgmental and hard to please. What's the opposite of that belief? The opposite is my mother is not judgmental and hard to please.
Mhm.
How could that be true? Well, wasn't I the one when I called her? I, I, she did thank me after all for these flowers. She was just saying a statement of fact. So could I be 100% sure that she was not just trying to be helpful? Maybe she just didn't want me to get scammed by this florist. Could be. Okay, now there's another turnaround. The opposite of my mother is too judgmental and hard to please could be I am too judgmental and hard to please. Well, I was the one who stayed up till 1 in the morning rehearsing exactly the words that I deserved to hear from my mom telling me what a great son I was. And so when that didn't happen, I lost it. Right. So who was being judgmental? I
Mhm.
was, wasn't I? And
Mhm.
there's a fourth belief that the opposite of my mother is too judgmental and hard to please towards me could be I am too judgmental and hard to please towards myself. And that one actually was the most true because
Mhm.
when this thing that I'd planned didn't go the way I wanted, I felt incompetent. I felt like I'd messed up. I felt ashamed that I did something wrong.
Mhm.
This is called a misattribution of emotion. When something inside feels bad, when we feel bad on the inside, we attribute it to something on the outside. We attribute it to stuff outside of us. But again, suffering doesn't happen out there. Suffering happens up here. And
Mhm.
so that's what I'd done to my mom. So out of those four beliefs, which one is true? Right? Which one is true? All of them? Which one is
Well,
false? Like, who cares? Beliefs are tools,
yeah.
not truths. So
Mm.
the one belief that my mother is too judgmental and hard to please, she had to change so I could feel better, so I could stop suffering.
Mm.
You don't know my mom, but I'm telling you that's not going to happen. Because anytime we wait for others to change so we could be happy, so we can stop suffering, if you hold your breath, you're going to suffocate. Doesn't work that way.
So much easier to change ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So now it doesn't mean I have to be best friends with my mom. I don't have to hang out with her every day. It just means I don't have to suffer. And what happened to my motivation to work on that relationship versus when I believe someone is too judgmental and hard to please? I don't want to be in a relationship with someone like that. I don't want to work on that relationship. So choosing to believe someone else, choosing to believe we're all operating with the tools we have. Changed my life, right? Definitely changed my relationship with my mom.
And I think that for our listener driving in, manufacturing team leader or frontline leadership, plant manager, we all get into this judgment trap. And I think what we can all walk away from and learn from your work is that we don't have to suffer, and we get choices on how, when that team member comes up and you're thinking, oh boy, what are they going to ask me now? You can change your belief and say, oh, interesting. I wonder what I need to know.
Yeah.
And it's good that this person is approaching me so we can change all that. Thank you for sharing your mother's story. And I can feel that we can all relate to that. And then we can all kind of put it back to the shop floor. So here we go. And we've brought this all together
My
here.
pleasure. Thank you so much, Trevor. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Man, I hope your beliefs are changing as much as mine. So here's something for you to take away today. Think of one team member that you work with that maybe you're a little frustrated with for some reason. And what are three intentions that could explain, that could possibly be true, as Nir explained? And maybe we can take a different look at that. Let's just see what shifts in how you show up, because we know how you show up impacts on how people feel, and how you make them feel determines how they can engage with you. And this all ties back into the work that we do on the showing up gap, that space between your intentions and people's perceptions. So as I mentioned at the break, if you can go to manufacturing.greatness.com/subscribe, you download those 10 questions, start using those as some additional tools. And then May 11th, 2027, the book's coming out, Manufacturing Greatness, and you'll be getting all the information leading up to that. So you can start using that today. We'll have the links to Nir, Beyond Belief. And it really is like, it's been so helpful for me. And I just wish that for you. And let's keep changing the manufacturing industry together and make it the place to work that everybody wants to be at. And stay curious.